All right. Join me on this week's episode of the Wisconsin Sportsman. I have the one and only Mr. Clint Campbell. Clint, how are we doing tonight?
Good, buddy. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's good to finally meet you. Heard a lot of good things about you from our mutual buddy, and appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that. It's always good to hear that Mr. Sklenner relays positive things. I heard the same about you. Aside from the fact that, I've had quite a few guests on this show, and I like talking to people from outside the state, particularly outside the Midwest, because I think there's a lot of different things that you can pick up on from the different habitats. I mean, shoot, you and I were just talking for 35 minutes here on the type of land that you're hunting in, stuff out in PA and all that. But dude, I've interviewed Hawkeyes, I've interviewed Gophers, I've interviewed Wolverines, Spartans, you name it. You are, as much as I hate to say it, you're a Nittany Lions fan, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I'm a Nittany Lions fan for sure, man. Especially whenever it comes to wrestling. That's the that's the thing. That's the thing that I follow the most, the closest. Like I love football. Don't get me wrong, but I'm more of I'm more of a Steeler fan, like an NFL fan as far as football goes. I enjoy some Penn State football. Don't get me wrong. I am also now a Pitt Panther football fan since my daughter is now going to the University of Pittsburgh. So I hail to Pitt. I do support them now, financially as well. But Penn State has always been like my team growing up. So we grew up, kind of equal distance between Pitt and Penn State, and I grew up wrestling, and so there's no better place to love wrestling than Penn State, man. Come on, you know what I mean? It's
super true.
What 14 of 16 now? I think natties of 16 natties, right? Always a slew of individual title winners every year. I've got to meet a couple of the guys too. A buddy of mine lives up there, and I usually go to a match or two with him every year, and he takes some of those guys hunting because a lot of those guys like to hunt and fish. They're all good kids. So I've got to meet and hang out with a few of them and talk to them and stuff like that, and they're good folks, and they like to hunt and try to kill some deer and kill some foxes and do some predator hunting and try to kill some coyotes. So there are kinds of people, you know what I mean? Put it that way. But I will say this for people who are listening that are Hawkeye fans, I'm also like a big fan of Caden Wetjen.
Badger fans. Hold on now. Badger fans.
Okay. Well, hey, dude, TJ Watt and Nick Herbig on. We got two of them. We got a couple more of them on the Steeler team. And then for the Hawkeye fans, we got a couple guys from the Hawkeyes on the Steelers now as well. And Caden Wetjen, he was a rookie this year. And actually I talked to him because we have a mutual friend, and he was moving. A buddy of mine texted me. He's like, "Hey, I got a friend. He lives in Iowa." He's like, "I got a friend moving from Iowa to Pittsburgh." And this was right around the draft. He's like, and this is around turkey season. He's like, and he's looking for some help to try to find a place to hunt or whatever. He's like, I know you don't live in Pittsburgh. He's like, but I know your family's from out that way. Do you have anyone you can turn him on to or whatever? And I was like, dude, what is he doing moving from Iowa to Pennsylvania if he likes to hunt deer and turkey? You know what I mean? And he was like, oh, he got drafted by the Steelers. I'm like, okay, well then that makes sense. So
that's
so I turned him on to like a buddy of mine, a cop buddy that lives out that way, that could help him find some places and maybe go chase some birds and stuff like that. But he had a nice preseason game, so I was stoked for him.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Unfortunately, I wish your Steelers fandom would get you further with our listener base. But on the bright side, you're a hell of a deer hunter, and I'm excited.
We got Rodgers. We're trying to do him right. Send him off.
That's true. Very true.
Back to you guys for the Hall of Fame. We're just borrowing him for a second.
Yeah. Absolutely. Super true. I can, all right. You're right. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I like it, dude. Well, buddy, I'm excited to be chatting with you, man. I've listened to your podcast for years now. I've learned a ton from you. So I'm excited to finally get to pick your brain and just talk a little bit about deer here. But dude, before we dive into that, and you kind of touched on it there. Actually, now that I think of it, you're the third guy with a wrestling background that I've had on a row. So we had our buddy Mr. Sklenner on 2 weeks ago, and we had Wyatt Barber, who was former professional fighter out of the Milwaukee area, and now you. I just made that connection there. But dude, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and just kind of how you got to be doing what you're doing with the Truth from the Stand?
Yeah, man. So Clint Campbell, from Pennsylvania. I was raised here. I was actually born in Charleston, South Carolina. My dad was in the military. He was in the Navy, so I was born on the naval base there. But we moved back here whenever I was just, really young. Grew up hunting like most people did in Pennsylvania. It's a heritage thing here. It's a birthright. You turn 12 years old, at least, you weren't allowed to hunt before that. I think there's some like younger youth stuff that maybe goes on now. But whenever I was growing up, 12 years old, you had a gun in your hand and you were hitting the woods with your grandpa and your uncle and your dad, and you were going to go out and put your orange on and you're going to do some gun hunting and try to, and it was very much, if it's brown, it's down type of hunting. There wasn't a whole lot of strategy involved necessarily. I moved away, went to college, left that. I was a musician for a long time, lived in Orlando for like 10 years and did the music thing as a gig. And then my wife and I went back to school, finished my degree, and then we wanted to move back to PA to raise our family, or raise our daughter. And then when I moved back, it was one of those things where, when I was in Orlando, I really didn't get a chance to hunt. I took one trip because the band was just busy. So I was always in the studio and in clubs and stuff like that. So it didn't give me a lot of time to do other things. But I did manage to take one trip with my dad. He and I went to Alaska and did some bear hunting together, like during that span of time, which was super cool. Then when I moved back to PA, like one of the reasons was, we were either kind of moving back to PA for family or we were headed to Colorado. And like my thing was like, I just need to be somewhere where I can do outdoor things, and I know PA and Colorado are very, very different from one another. Right. But PA was the choice because of having a family and wanting our daughter to grow up around her, grandparents and aunts and uncles and stuff like that. And, truth was like, I also wanted to get back to just doing the things I loved growing up, and one of them being hunting. And so moved back, and, I didn't bow hunt when I was a kid growing up. My dad, again, was a gun hunter. We did a lot of small game hunting. So I hunted a lot of pheasant and grouse and, you name it, we hunted it. Ran dogs. My uncle ran dogs for rabbits. And, so that was kind of like my upbringing. But deer was just like one of those things that was just like the season came along. And so you hunted deer during deer season, and it wasn't like it was exciting because like you loved deer hunting, right? It was like, big game and go to camp and do all that stuff, but it wasn't like archery hunting. It wasn't like a strategy thing. It was more of a hang than a family than it was anything. And then we have a couple family properties on the western part of the state and out in the western part of the state, and my father-in-law has a big piece. He built a family cabin on it and stuff like that, more for people to hang out at and stuff like that. And he grew up hunting that piece. And so I started going there with him and, gun hunting when I came back home. And I kind of made good friends with one of his good buddies, this guy, Tate, the old timer. I want to say he's in his late 60s now. And we were fall turkey hunting, and we had a little bit too much to drink the night before, as such things happens in that turkey camp and things like that. And went to the woods the next morning and was hunting turkeys, and I'm not ashamed to admit, but I took a little nap, laid down on a piece of moss, was a little hungover. I was like, I'm gonna take a little snooze. So I did. And I woke up and there was like a couple bucks pushing this doe around. Right. And so growing up gun hunting, man, it's like you never saw deer move that weren't running. Right. Like you never see like natural deer movement. And so I walked back to the cabin, after I was done hunting, like whether it was lunch or whatever it was, to meet up with the guys, just talking about what I'd seen, and I was like, I saw these deer just kind of milling around doing their thing. And at that point, like at this time, I'm like 30, but I never really heard of the rut. Like no one really explained that to me at that point. And so he kind of explained it to me, and I was like, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, because they were vocalizing too. You know what I mean? So, and he was basically like, if you want more of that, he's like, you need to pick up a bow. And I was like, sold. So at that point I picked up a bow and, never really looked back, and just started kind of hunting the farm there at first, and I did that for a couple of years. But what really kind of turned it for me was like, I kind of quickly realized that like, I like to travel, like in general, like to do stuff like that was part of the band stuff. Like you were always somewhere different. And so, ended up taking a trip to Ohio on a whim, didn't know anything about anything, and showed up on this piece and like scouted it. And, good Lord, man, I don't even know if like Onyx was around yet at this time. And got lost literally because I had a Garmin and the battery died in my pack. Got lost. It was a nightmare. I ended up finding my way out, but in the course of finding my way out back to my truck, I've stumbled onto this area that like looked really good, and I ended up setting up there and killing, at that point, the biggest deer I'd ever killed, like on the third day or something like that.
Hell yeah.
And then the public bug bit me because there was a deer that I chased on my father-in-law's farm that was like the best deer I'd ever seen on that property. And he was an old deer, and I knew he was bedded on the neighbors, and I couldn't really do anything about it, and except try to catch him at a pinch coming back to our property in the evening, essentially going to a food source. And so once that deer burnt, I had like 3 encounters with that deer and just couldn't get him killed. But once that happened, I was like, you know what? I just want to hunt public because I want places where I don't have as small of borders, and I want to be able to like chase a deer down if I know where he's at.
Totally.
Because and I liked hunting the private piece. It's fun, like like being with my family and stuff like that. But that was whenever like the bug really kind of bit me, where I was like, I want to hunt them down. I don't want to wait for them. Like if I know where they're at, I want to try to go get them. Right. And then that just kind of set off the obsession for the most part, because then I became, not just obsessed with deer hunting, but obsessed with like trying different things. Right. And like being a little bit more mobile, being a little bit more aggressive. And then that bled into my, and I love to travel. So I just started traveling somewhere every year, wherever I could go. And that's also what spilled into like elk hunting and mule deer hunting, and just seeing new places and trying new things and failing if I need to figure it out. Like I don't really like to be taught things. I like to just kind of figure things out on my own for the most part, a lot of times. Um, and then that's also whenever then shortly after that, then this spot and stalk bug bit me, to where it's like I really just wanted to hunt whitetails on the ground in the wide open country and try to beat them at their game, and that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like, and now it's like I carry a stick bow around because I'm an idiot, so there's that.
Dang, dude. That's super cool, man. It's like PA and Wisconsin, I feel like, are like 2 major states that have kind of that old school, like big woods, like hunting lore, and that, kind of back culture a little bit, and that history with him and stuff. That's super cool, dude. And as you're telling that story about, getting in, starting with, at age 12, gun hunting and everything before you picked up a bow, it kind of like just dawned on me. It's like gun hunting, not to bash the guys who only gun hunt, but like gun hunting's like an event, right? Opening weekend, everybody rallies up. You go to camp, everybody's got their stand, all that sort of stuff. It's fun, pretty lighthearted for the most part, right? But I'm right there with you, dude. It wasn't until I picked up a bow and then eventually got some like 45-pound climber that I would lug around my parents' little 5-acre chunk and everything, that I like started kind of putting the pieces together of like, oh, dang, there's a heck of a lot more to this. And it's like, yeah, gun hunting's kind of like the event, but bow hunting is, it's a lifestyle. If you're, if the bug bites you, right? Like that's super cool.
Yeah.
Dude.
And when at the time too, there wasn't like ways to learn like there are now either. Right. So even when we're like, I was like, cause I'm 48 now, like I started doing it when I was like 30, I guess, and so even at that time, like you didn't have podcasts really. I think maybe the Beast Forum was around, but I had no clue who Dan Etfold was, you know what I mean? Like never heard of him,
Yep.
And the internet also wasn't like as the thing that it is now, is not to sound old, right? But like, it's not the way it wasn't what it is now, is not what it was then. Right. And so the access to kind of know, because I think some people hear some of this stuff sometimes and are like, well, how did you not know? I'm like, in my mind, unless you knew someone who did this stuff, like you just didn't know. Like there was no, or you read magazines, or something like that. But, I grew up in a really small town where like you didn't really have a bookstore. There wasn't like a place to get, like you get a Hustler if you want, but you're not getting Field and Stream at the gas station, just in case you were wondering, like that was where we were at, so, and that's the interesting thing about hunting. Like, I think, it's hard for people, I think, to learn it because there's not really a way to learn it necessarily. Like everything you learn typically, like in life in general, there's like a framework or a way to learn how to do it. Right. And you think about like when you go to school, right, there's a curriculum, right? You think about if you're learning to wrestle, we were talking about wrestling earlier, right? Like there's a process to take someone who's never seen a wrestling mat to get them to understand how to wrestle over time. Right. Same thing in jiu-jitsu. There's like a way, like you can take someone who's never done jiu-jitsu, and if they do it consistently, you can create a framework of how to learn how to do it, right? There's a way to teach it, right? Hunting really doesn't have that, especially if you don't have anybody in your family who's ever done it or someone close to you that's ever done it, right? It's like like figuring it out on your own, like it's such a struggle where it's, you're likely not to stick with it, because unless you're just kind of ignorant and just don't care about it sucking real bad for a long time, because that's what it's going to be, That's one thing I started doing with the podcast, because you're asking about the podcast. Like, so I started that to I literally, when I got into bow hunting, like I started the podcast because my goal was, there's people out there that don't live near me that are probably really good at this, and I need to figure out a way to talk to them because I want to get better at this. And so I started the podcast thinking that, I was like, if I start a podcast and someone wrote a book, I can probably convince them to come on my podcast, even if I didn't have a big audience, because nobody knew at that time, because no one knew what impressions were and stuff like that, I could probably convince them that it's worth their while to come talk to me for an hour, and I could ask them questions, right? I was like, and someone else probably has the same questions that I do, and so I can help them answer them as well. And that was really the idea, and that was how it started. It was nothing more than just, I wanted to get better at it, and I wanted to have a community of people that I could learn from, and then hopefully at some point be able to pay it back and help someone else learn how to do it, So that was kind of the idea. And so now it's like, I have this component of it's called the Hunter Operating System, where it's a lot of like frameworks and how to think about hunting that I'm kind of walking through. That way, if someone doesn't have a mentor or something like that, and you just kind of start listening to those, I may not be able to tell you exactly what to do, because I don't claim to know everything, and I don't claim to be great, and I don't claim to have all the answers. But what I can tell you is what not to do, and like what things are going to send you down the wrong path, right? Because I've done it, and we've all done it, right? So if I can help you just mitigate that mistake, then I've probably set you up to get to where you want to go a little bit more quickly. So I started doing that on the show most recently. That's been this year.
Totally. Yeah, dude, I've been following along with that. That's been really, really cool, dude. I feel like we've been running like parallel journeys here in our bow hunting careers. Like, cause I cannot tell you how much I relate to that, those early days of not knowing where to begin. And it's like, I remember being in middle school and high school or something like that. And like youth weekend would come, and like one kid would come in and he's got, some 8-pointer that he shot with his dad or something. And I was like, how the hell did you do that, dude? I can barely find a deer. I mean, outside of, out of season when they're, raiding my parents' bird feeders, or they're down in the field, at dusk or whatever. And like, I just didn't know where to begin. Right. And so you talk to people, or you talk to your buddies' dads or something, and you're just talking to them about deer, and they talk about food plots, or they talk about doing something different with their stands, and talk about wind direction, all that. And it's like, okay, great. So I'm going to do this. And you get so focused on one element of the whole pursuit, right? And it's like, okay, wait a minute, how do I fill in the gaps leading up to that step so that this is actually serving me? And dude, just like you said, you got to be willing to just kind of eat it for a handful of years before things start to click and you really figure it out, because nobody tells you where to start. You know what I mean? Nobody says like, all right, you're to your jiu-jitsu reference there, like, nobody's like, okay, you're a white belt hunter, you're going to start on the field edge for this season, and then maybe next year we'll move you 20 yards in, onto this oak ridge. You know what I mean? There's no framework of where to start, right? So
yeah,
dude, and
that was like, that's kind of what the goal of that like mini series has been. It's short. It's like, I try not to do any more than like 20 minutes, and it's just kind of, it's really me using, the lens of like, yes, I grappled growing up, but it was like, I didn't start doing jiu-jitsu until I was 44, and jiu-jitsu is one of those things, even if you've grappled, it's so, like, I'll say it's unique enough that you have to learn how to, like, especially for me, because I'd been out of college for a while, right? And I needed to kind of learn how to learn again, right? Like, how do I learn this thing new? Because I learned how to play guitar when I was a kid, but I taught myself. And so my wife always tells me I'm a terrible teacher, because most everything that I do is just things that I've naturally been able to do, right? Jiu-jitsu was the one thing, even though I had a grappling background, where it was like, yeah, I'm going to get my face beat in until like I actually try to learn this, like, and learn how to do it, right? And take like a process and like figure out like how, and it's not a one size fits all, just like hunting isn't, you have to figure out like, for jiu-jitsu, for example, it's like, there's certain things I'm just never going to be able to do because I don't have the right limb length. I don't have the right body type. I'm not flexible, whatever the limitation is. Right. And so you adapt and you adapt the techniques or whatever to work for you. And some of them just aren't going to be for me. Right now, I might know them. It's good for me to know, but I may not ever use it. And I feel like it's the same in hunting. It's like, you take these techniques or these strategies or these tactics, and you have to know yourself well enough to know whether or not they're going to work for you. Right. Like, good example is like Ryan Glitsky, for example. That dude can sit in a tree and do dark to darks and that's his jam. Like, he's a Bobby Worthington type dude, right? Where it's like, he's going to find a pinch or a funnel, and he's going to sit. And if he feels like it's the right spot, he will put his rear end there for however many days he thinks that he needs to be there to kill that deer. Like, I'd want to follow my own arrow. Like, I can't do that. Like, there was a time where I could do that, and I've done it. I've done, like, dark to dark sits for, like, 10 days or whatever, like in this one big woods piece. But that just isn't me. Like, I'm better off like walking and trying to walk something down, right?
Yep.
For nothing else other than like my sanity and feeling like I'm getting closer, right? That's all with saying, like, where you're not boogering stuff up, you're using the wind correctly, you're paying attention to your access, like all the things that you need to pay attention to. I'm not doing it with wild abandon, but that's just two different styles of, like, we probably have very similar kind of like approaches to things, but our executions are a little bit different, right? Like, we look for very similar things, like when we scout or whatever, because Ryan and I've scouted together before, but the way we execute and what we find is just different, right? And that's just because we just have different approaches. It's like two jiu-jitsu practitioners, like, knowing all the same techniques, having the same coach, but their styles are different, right? It's like, we know the same stuff, we just use it differently. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. More than one way to skin a cat, right? I like it, dude. Dude, on the note of, like, kind of self-teaching in the deer woods and everything, right? Like, what were some of the things early on as you started? You mentioned getting lost and kind of stumbling into that spot and having that first little bit of success there. But, like, as you started to kind of climb up the ladder and start to figure things out and sort of develop your own approach, like, what were some of the biggest, I don't know, concepts might not be the right word, but like some of the biggest hurdles to clear as you, like, worked your way up the learning curve when things started to really click?
Yeah, I think that when things started clicking the most is like when you, at least in my opinion, is like whenever I really didn't have to think about wind and thermals anymore, where I could see a spot and just kind of know what was going to happen or have a real good idea of what was going on in that area. And then the next one was being able to understand how to, like, use it to, like, manipulate the deer a little bit. Right. And that was something that, I would be able to do from time to time, I guess, but it really kind of came to fruition actually the last time I was in Iowa, because I was able to set up on this edge of this big drainage where I'd bumped a deer. I'd missed a big deer 2 different times on that trip that just, like, still to this day eats me up, kills me. I saw him, I think, a total of 4 times and missed him twice, both times at like 28 yards. It was like, the one was I just got the fever and I missed him, shot under him. And then the one was I just played the scenario wrong, and I talked about in one of the Hunter operating system episodes where I waited too long to take the shot, and he got jiggy, and when I got the shot opportunity, it was not clean. I just didn't see something that was slightly in my way, and I clipped a small branch, and it knocked my arrow in the dirt, right? And the way I played that wrong was, as a doe came through, it's November in Iowa, I should have immediately picked up my bow. I didn't. I watched that doe, and then he popped out behind her. And my best time to shoot him would have been as soon as he popped out. That was the best shot I was going to get. But obviously I didn't have my bow in my hand, so I had to wait for another opportunity, and it just wasn't as good as the first one was. But with that being said, I kind of went in and, I don't necessarily recommend this all the time, but I was going to the last day of the hunt. And so the day before that, I just blew through everything that I kind of wanted to hunt. I was like, I'm going to jump any buck that's in here up. I just want to see if there's one in here. And made sure I had the wind, and was more bumping him with sound than I was, like, I didn't want him to see me necessarily. I didn't want him to smell me. And so I bumped the buck out of a bed. And when I found the bed, like where it was kind of set up, there was like a scrape that wasn't far away. And that was actually where I missed the big one the day before. And there were some beds in there. So I knew does were bedded in there, and he was bedding in there as well. I'm imagining it was probably a rut bed for him. He was waiting for does to kind of come back, and he wasn't playing the game of like, I'm going to run around and find does. It's like, it's very John Eberhart, where it's like, I'm just going to lay where does want to go, and I'm going to let them walk by me, and I'm going to scent check them as they walk by me. Right.
Sure.
So I bumped that deer out, and I was like, he's going to come back. And so I just found a tree to set up in, and I hung my saddle set up on the edge of this drainage. And the scrape that I missed the deer at the day before, I don't know, it was maybe 75, 80 yards away, roughly. And the way the wind was playing, when I was looking at the wind, I was like, the wind is going to be actually good for me to get in for access the next day, but I'm going to have to come in like around whatever it was, like 2 o'clock or something like that, which is going to be late in the day because the wind was like funky all day that last day. So I was going to have good wind to get in around 2 o'clock. But once I got in, the where I thought the deer was going to come from, it was totally wrong. Like couldn't be more wrong. Like I'm going to get busted unless he comes through about a half hour before dark, because as I was watching the wind, it was going to start to shift in my favor. And as the sun was going to start to go down, the wind was actually going to be, the prevailing was going to be blowing right toward him. But if I'm set up on that edge and the sun starts to go down, my thermal is going to start to pull over the edge of that drainage. And that's exactly what happened. He walked in toward me, like he thought he had the wind in his face, and my thermal was just dropping down over that edge. And I shot him at like, I don't remember what it was. I want to say it was like 8 yards or something like that, and that was just like that in my mind was like the first time knowingly setting up something to where it's like I was going to manipulate and fool the deer by giving him the wind, presumably, but I actually had the thermal advantage based on where I was set up. Right.
Sure.
And so for me, it's like, once you start understanding that, you've got, like, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but you've got a large part of the game. Like, I'll just say, like, you've got a large part of being able to get close figured out. Right.
Totally.
Now, whether or not you're on deer or not is a different story, but once you can kind of start to do that, you won't have trouble getting close or getting encounters. Then it's just a matter of like, can I get close enough and get them to be close enough? Right. Is my setup right?
For sure.
Which a ton of stuff goes into that. Depends on the weapon too, because I'm going through another growing pain now of, I would have killed the second biggest deer of my life last year in Kansas if I had my compound, because my setup was perfect for a compound, 25-yard shot. And I had a longbow that my comfortable distance or my kill range is 20 yards. And I had a mid 160s deer at 25 yards 3 times. Same deer. And so, it's just, as you kind of go through this, like you go through these different growing pains of figuring stuff out. Now, I mean, I could just be not a knucklehead and just take the compound, and make life easier on myself. Right. But, what's the fun in that? It's like, I like a challenge, like learning new things. And I mean, my goal now is really just to get close. Like that's, I don't know, like ever since I started kind of spotting, stalking, hunting off the ground, it's just like, I just want to be as close as I can.
Totally, dude. I like that. Yeah, dude. The first time everything clicks and you're like, oh my God, it worked. Like that's, I definitely hear you there, man. And just the confidence that follows that, dude, that's huge. That, as you were saying that, I prepped a tree 2 weeks ago at my folks' farm that lays out almost exactly the way you described that, in terms of just if the timing's right with the thermals and everything, it should give that buck the wind in his face just further up on this bench that kind of wraps around this point, and your thermals will just be chugging down. It's a weird, I've only got 5 acres over there, but there's an empty barn foundation over there that I haven't thermal tested it, but I'm imagining my thermals, if all goes well, as soon as the sun dips behind the ridge on the other side of the valley, everything should fall off and basically go down a little tractor trail and hopefully spill off into that foundation there. Dude, that's super cool, man. When did the ground hunting start to come into play? Like, when was that? When did that itch begin? Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick sec to tell you about Lone Wolf Custom Gear. Lone Wolf Custom Gear is as good as it gets when it comes to mobile hunting equipment. Whether you're a saddle or stand guy, public land or private, Lone Wolf Custom Gear has a set of sticks, a stand, a camera arm, and any number of accessories to get you closer to your target buck. To make it even better, everything is 100% USA sourced and made right here in the Midwest, and it's even assembled right across the river in Iowa by hunters who love chasing deer just as much as you do. To build your kit today, go visit lonewolfcustomgear.com. Now, let's get back to the episode.
I'm trying to think. Like I started kind of getting more and more interested in it and playing with it when I started going out west and chasing elk and mule deer. And I don't remember what year that was. Probably 10 years ago, maybe, like roughly. And I just had an interest in it. And it was more like, trying to figure out how to say this. After taking some trips out west, or at least, the first one that I took, I could see the value in being able to be mobile and more mobile and move. Cause I was already mobile, as using a mobile stand, and I moved to a saddle and blah, 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 blah. But I could really see the value in just being on the ground and being able to like, make moves like in real time when you see something happening. Um, and then I started doing a little bit of it like in Pennsylvania, which is tough because it's timbered, right? So it's a little bit more challenging. Just because you can't, obviously you can't see as far and stuff like that. But I started looking, especially in a heavily pressured states, like I started kind of finding spots that you could really only hunt on the ground. And
Sure.
lo and behold, it's like I started finding like good deer sign there and started finding decent bucks there because most people want to get into a tree. Right. And so if I can just zig when people are zagging, I can probably get into spots that just aren't going to have a lot of people. Now, that being said, a lot of the pieces around me aren't huge. So you're always going to be kind of encompassed by people. You know what I mean? So it didn't really
Right.
play out necessarily how I thought. And then it really kind of bit me um, as I was kind of playing around with it. I was just like, I want to go to the plains. I was like, I really want to spot and stalk and decoy and just have an active hunt, because what I love about Western hunting is just like how active it is, right? Where it's like you can make something happen. Right? I'm going to go glass.
Right.
If I hear bugles, I might try to cut the distance or whatever the case is. Um, and so that idea appealed to me for whitetails. And so I was like, you know what? I'd never done it before. I was like, I'm gonna get a tag. I'm gonna go to the plains, and I'm gonna try to run a deer down. It's like as basically was my idea, right? I was like, and then my buddy Chad
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Yeah, dude, let's do it," because we like to do dumb shit together. So we were like, "Let's just go figure this out." And then, I mean, I had friends, like I had talked to a couple different guys. Like I talked to Zach Farrenball. Like obviously he was very good at it, and so I had some chats with him. And then the guy who I really talked to a lot that kind of helped me out a ton was actually Jared Scheffler, right? Because I mean, I think he's one of the best like hunters in general. Like he doesn't do it as much as he used to. Like his time's a little bit more limited, but he's so good on the ground and he's so good getting close. Like I don't know that I've seen anybody that's as slick at it as he is necessarily, right? From the ground, right? Um,
Sure.
And so I was like, and he kind of got me fired up. And so I was like, all right, I'm doing this. And I went out, the first year and scared a lot of deer. There were a lot of frightened deer that year on the plains.
Yeah.
But I learned a valuable lesson. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. It's like you just kind of, figured it out until it works. You just kind of adjust. And we would bed a deer, and we were finding deer, and we would bed a deer and we'd go in and decoy, and like, we wouldn't wait long enough, and we'd make a move in, and just like every way you could screw it up, we screwed it up. And then Chad ended up killing like a Boone Crockett deer at 5 yards, which was like a killer hunt. And then I had like, I don't even remember, like I had an encounter with like a deer that was like 160 inches roughly. Like I tried to stalk him, and I blew him out on like the third day of the hunt. And then I had another one that like, I mean, he was at, I don't know how close it was, probably like 15 yards. Chad saw him, and I was tucked in between these cedars, and he ran right by me. I never got a shot. And then I had another deer that was like 100 and probably 55 inches. I had him at 15 yards, and he got behind this little down tree and like went to scent check me like they do. Right. And
Yeah.
busted me. I was already at full draw. I was waiting for him just to pop his head or pop himself out behind this brush pile. And like he was smoked. But the valuable lesson that I learned there was like learning like when to flip the switch of being patient to aggressive, because I was just way aggressive on that trip. And that's really what did me in, right? Where because you get a visual on deer in places like that, you're better off laying back and letting them show you what they're going to show you their cards. Cause they'll show you their cards usually. Right.
Sure.
Not every time, right? But you're better off doing that because you're more likely to mess it up unless if you just kind of run in, right, when you first see them. And so the next year I went out, and this time I went by myself, and I got on, and I've told this story before, but I got on like a mega giant, like still the to this day, like the biggest deer of my life, like legitimate. At the time, I thought he was 200 inches. I actually met a guy who knew the guy who killed the deer. And I think he ended up scoring like low 190s, high 180s, something like that. And I saw him on the first day that I was there, glassed him. Or actually, I was walking up into this area and I just saw does moving around, and then I saw like a buck and I threw the glass on him, and it was a giant. And long story short was like, he was with a doe. He was going to bed her. I knew I had a couple of days. He was probably going to disappear unless I could like cut him out, bedded in like some CRP or something like that. So I did. I tried to cut him out and see where he was at so I could stalk him, but he just never exposed himself. But my guess was that he would be back into that same area, because there's a spot that they like to cut does out that I kind of learned from the prior year, where they like to congregate in this one area. And all like the cutting out that I would see would happen in the same area, like of this particular parcel. And it was one of the few places I had a really good glassing vantage point, right? And so my idea was like, I'm just going to beat him to where he wants to be the next morning, because he's been on that doe for 5 days. I was like, so he bred her for 3, but I was like, he was being a gentleman, so he probably wasn't ready to breed her yet. So I figured it was like going to be 4 or 5 days. And sure enough, like the last day of the hunt, I was like, he's going to be back out. And I walked in and I was like, I'm just going to get to where I know he wants to be. And so I walked in under moonlight, no light on, nothing, through this ditch. I was able to follow this ditch the whole way, and went to crest the ditch to get up underneath this locust tree. And when I popped up over, I could see him like in the gray light, skylit, standing right where I was going to walk, like right to the tree that I was going to set up like next to. And he was with a doe. He was grunting. He was snort wheezing at me. He was scraping a tree. And like, I could just never get a clean shot at him. I had that deer at like 20 yards for like 5 minutes and couldn't get him killed. And I watched him walk away. And then as I was driving out that evening, he was in full gallop chasing a doe through a cut cornfield beside my truck. I mean, he was like he was like 5 yards from my truck, just running right beside me. And I'm like, he had junk all over. It was just like crazy. So then the next year I go back, to the same general area. And over the time I learned, that patience in that area is key. But then whenever you get the sign to go, like, you got to go, right? Like when they give you the window, like, you got to take it, because it's going to be fleeting, because you also like have to figure out in that area, how many sets of eyes am I beating? How many noses are in this group, right? Especially when it's the rut, how many sets of ears do I need to beat? What's my access look like? Where are the other hunters? Are there bird hunters? Cause like, bird season comes in during that time, or like during November out there, depending on what part of November you're hunting. And so you're trying to figure out, so it's like when they got the chink in the armor and you recognize what it is and you know what they want to do, then you got to go. And like that, my big learning lesson out there for that trip was, the deer will tell me how to kill him. I just need to listen to him. Like when I find a good deer, I just need to listen to him. He's going to tell me exactly how to do it if I just pay attention. Right.
Yep.
And so I ended up setting up an area to hunt. It was like a decent area to hunt. I was just sitting on the ground, but mainly I wanted to glass this area to see if the deer were doing what they had done the previous 2 years I had been out there. And sure enough, a big deer walks out with another deer, 2 does and like another buck. And they walk out of this CRP patch. And I didn't know how big he was at the time. I just knew he was a good deer. And I was like, it was like 0.8 of a mile away. It was like how far away he was. And I was like, I'm going to kill that deer tomorrow in that same spot. I was like, that's all there is to it, And so next morning I kind of hunted a different area, like not far from it, in case he like wanted to slip through this like little patch. I kind of set up in there on the ground, and I think he actually came through, because there was a big deer that came through. It was so foggy I couldn't see. And another deer crested like this ditch on the other side, and I rattled at it, and it jumped out of its fur. And that deer was probably like 145 inches, and he took off like someone shot at him. And so again, just going back to like, you just pay attention to what the deer do and they'll tell you, right? It's spot dependence. Not, you have to take into consideration what state you're in. But I was like, that deer was a good deer. He's probably a 4-year-old. I was like, if he's running off, I was like, that means he's got his rear end kicked by something else in here that's either older or bigger.
Yep.
And so in my mind, I already decided, I was like, that was the subordinate buck that was with the other buck from last night. That means he's in here still. And so I backed out, and I told myself, I was like, I'm going to go in at like 3:00. Went in at 3:00, set up underneath this like cedar tree, like whatever it was, 15 minutes before dark, 2 does walked out. He walked out behind him, and I shot him off the ground at like in a ghillie jacket at like 25 yards or 24 yards or something like that. And that was
Damn.
it. Yeah. So it's like what I learned in all those trips is like you have to be patiently aggressive. All right. It's like you have to be patient and read them and let them show their cards, because they will. And then whenever they show you their cards, don't overthink it. Don't pretend
Yep.
like you have more answers than the deer do. Right. Because I think it's a lot of times what we get caught up in is like we so badly want to be right that we dismiss what the deer just told us.
Yep.
Right. It's like telling a child, don't touch the stove, it's hot. They touch it anyway because they want to be right. It's like, nope, I'm going to touch it anyhow. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the same thing. It's like the deer says, you should kill me over here. You're like, no, I want to kill you over here. It's like, what are you doing? Like, they've already told you how to win. Just
Yep.
take the win, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that deer taught me. And he was like 172 and some change, you know? So it was the biggest deer I've ever killed. And and that's, I mean, I loved hunting off the ground at that point, but then that was like, in my mind, I was like, how does this get better? I was like, a stick bow. I was like, to
Yeah.
where it's like, I gotta get like sub 20 yards, you know?
Yep.
I was like,
True
that's the
pain.
only way. Yeah, I was like, that's the only way this gets better. And that's what happened last year, right? It's like I played each scenario right and got them in the right spot, just, needed a couple yards.
Dang, dude. That's nuts, man. Have you found it easier to manage your scent or your thermals or anything like that from the ground versus getting up in a tree?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on like the setup, to be honest. But
Sure.
like just generally speaking, I do feel like I can get away with more on the ground. Not movement wise, right? That's the one thing that's the killer. Like you probably get away with more
Right.
movement in a tree, right?
Yeah.
But I can definitely get away with more sound, I feel like, and I definitely feel like I can get away with a little bit more scent, like issue or cheating, if you will, on
Hmm.
the ground. Because like if you just think about like if I'm in a tree and I'm dropping milkweed and it's like I'm watching this thing blow and it's doing this, right? But it's like it's not just that, it's this that's happening, right? And so how
Yep.
wide of a net am I casting, with my scent? When I'm on the
Right.
ground and I drop milkweed, it just falls and hits the ground, right? Depending on how bad how strong the wind is or whatever the case is, right?
Hmm.
So I do feel like, and I've had this discussion with some other buddies that are good ground hunters, and I've talked to them about this, and they kind of felt the same way, where it's like you certainly get away with less movement, but you can get away with cheating the wind a little bit more. Because I've had deer so close to me on the ground where they should have winded me and they didn't, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just because like it hit the ground, it pooled, and it kind of saturated. Now you're saturating that spot on the ground for sure, you know. But I just don't think it disperses as far,
Hmm.
unless the wind is really like ripping in a certain direction, so to speak. And I definitely think like you get away with way more sound, especially in the plains, because that grass is always rustling and stuff, especially if you're like in
Right.
CRP and stuff. And I mean, I've had deer come up on me. I literally was sitting in an area once having lunch and a deer ran over this bank and I didn't hear it until it was probably like I don't know, 10 feet behind me, maybe. And it jumped over the bank and landed in front of me. I was like, boom. And then it didn't even see me, and a doe jumped over, and then a buck, and like they just went and they bedded like 15 yards in front of me, and
Holy
so
smokes.
it's like I think you can get away with a lot more. You just got to be good at like you got to be still, obviously,
Yep.
and you have to think about like your back cover and stuff like that, and you have to think about where your sun's at, right? Because that
Hmm.
deer that I killed was like it was the worst possible setup for the sun. Because ideally, you want the sun in their face if you can set up. Like you want
Right.
them looking into the sun, just like you or I. If we're looking into the sun, man, it's hard to make out what things are, hard to see things
Hmm.
and stuff like that. You don't really want the sun on you. You know what I mean?
Right.
That deer I killed, like the only spot I could really set up that I felt like I had good enough cover to like make it happen, and I could play the wind well enough. Like he busted me right before I killed him. Like he winded me, like he ran right to where I was, like my wind was going, and so because whenever he stopped, like he snapped his head, like he knew he was cooked. Like he obviously didn't know what was going to happen, but he knew it was bad, like
Yep.
postured up, like, oh shit, I just messed up, you know? But yeah, I totally think you get away with more scent and more sound on the ground for sure.
That's interesting. How do you balance the like boots on the ground scouting with hunting from the ground? Like,
I
are you
don't.
worried about ground? Okay, all
There
right.
is no balance.
They're one the same.
Yeah. No, actually, I don't do a lot of boots on the ground when I'm out there. It's all
Okay,
driving and glass,
gotcha.
and I don't
Got it.
usually don't even get out unless I know there's something in an area. Now, the times I will, this last time I went out. So what? Like just to frame it for folks that are listening, because I think when you go to like open country places, like if someone's, and I kind of turn this into an open country discussion, and we can talk about other stuff, but the like you really need, like in my opinion, like 10 days if you've never been there before to do it, because it's going to take you a little bit to locate deer. It's not like people think, oh, you drive through Oklahoma or Kansas or parts of Nebraska and you just like see giants everywhere. And it's just not the case, right? And so you spend a lot of time behind the windshield trying to locate deer, or locate the caliber of deer that you want to hunt. Um, so for me, it's like I do a lot of that, and I usually don't even get out unless I see something that I like, and then I might go investigate on the ground a little bit. But really, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to watch that deer, and then I'm going to just go hunt that deer when I feel like I get an opportunity. Right.
For
Um,
sure.
it was a little different this year because, and then just to level set again for people who are listening, like when I go out there anymore, it's like I was out there last year for a month, and so when I first got there, it was. I don't remember what the date was. It was sometime toward the end of October, like third week of October or something like that. So the crops were all still in, which is kind of crappy because you can't see as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I did do, my boots on the ground, was because I can't see real well. I'm just trying to find, when I'm out there, it's like I'm just trying to find a good deer. Like, and for me, it's like I don't need to kill a Boone and Crockett deer, on these trips. It's nice, and I've had great opportunities to kill really good deer, but I'm looking at like a representative animal for the area. It's like if I can get on like a mid 140s deer or better, it's like I'm tickled, especially because like the last hunt this past year after I botched that, big one 3 times and just couldn't quite get close enough. The last day I spotted, got on one who's probably like 145 inches and I stalked him and I got to 40 yards and my wind switched and he was gone. Right. It's like, man, that's just the game you play out there. Right. It's a little dicey. The wind was going to be dicey, but it was like the last day of the hunt. So I was just trying to make something happen. But with the crops up, what I did for boots on the ground was I basically just drove to places that I kind of wanted to hunt, that I thought I wanted to hunt, especially when the crops came out. And I would walk. Now the fields are big, so it takes some time, but I would basically just walk the entire field edges where they were dirt and just try to cut a track. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I cut a good track, then I might, if there's a little strip of timber or there's like a creek bottom that's in there or whatever, it's like I might meander through it a little bit or just throw my binos up and see if I can see any like good sign from where I'm at. But as long as I have a good track there, it's like, then I'm like, okay, there's a good deer in the area. Is he on this parcel? I don't know. He could be on the next piece of public that's right over here. He could be on the private that's over here or whatever. So, but I'm going to want to keep an eye on this area. Right. And once the crops come out, I'm going to want to combine. I'm going to want to glass it. And if there's a nice knob somewhere I can get to where I can sit and look, then I might hike in there and spend a morning for a couple hours just watching. Right. And just see if I can pick one up, like coming back to bed or letting the does get back to bed. And like, that same thing whenever we're hunting the rut in the timber. It's like you get that time frame when the does are all back to bed. It's like, when do you usually see the bucks? Like 9:30 to 11, right? Why? Well, it's all the does are back to bed, right? So they're waiting until they're back to bed so they don't have to run all over. They're just going to doe bedding areas and checking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, right? So you just kind of wait for them to make themselves visible, and then use that to your advantage. So for me, there's not a lot of boots on the ground scouting out there. Now, I knew guys who do, and they're successful, but that's just not for me. That's not the experience that I want. If I want to do boots on the ground scouting and go set up somewhere and sit and wait, it's like I can do that in Pennsylvania. I don't need to drive halfway across the country to do that. I go out there for a specific experience,
For sure.
and for me, it's not trying to walk something down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally, dude. Well, I like what you said there too about, because there's, although it's like a different type of terrain, right? There's still bits and pieces that you can take from that and apply them elsewhere in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I liked especially what you said there about, especially when crops are still standing, like early season Wisconsin, we're able to hunt September 12th, I think is our opener this year. Like everything's still green. We still got at least a month until anything gets picked and all that. And it can be super easy to fall into that headspace of, well, I don't have oaks on my piece, or maybe I do, but I don't know when they're dropping, or all these deer just bedded out in the corn and, they come in at 3 a.m. or something, and they,
Mm-hmm.
cruise through this hub or whatever it may be. But dude, I love that approach that you had there about just walking field edges with standing corn and just trying to cut a track, dude. Because so
Yeah.
often people feel like, well, I got to wait till the corn comes out if I'm going to be able to do anything, because that's when the deer come into the timber. It's like, well, no, they still do. You just have to figure out where and when, right?
Yeah. Or just if nothing else, like, is there a deer here that I even want to hunt? Right. Like
Totally.
that's like, especially when you're on a trip somewhere and it's like, it's like, I don't want to spend time on a piece that doesn't have the type of deer that I want to hunt. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as big of a deal for me on some of these trips because I work remotely. So it's like I work and hunt from my hunting rig and I'll just stay in whatever state I'm going to and I'll be there for a month. Like this year I'll be in Iowa and I'll be there for a month, like, or a little bit more depending.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's more just like working with what you got. Right. When I first got out there this year, it rained when I first got there, which is abnormal. And the crop stayed in a lot longer because the ground was wet. And I don't know if anyone's been out into that area to hunt, but like, man, when those those dirt back roads in Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma get wet, dude, like you ain't going anywhere. It's like, especially if you got a big truck, you're just gonna sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I about put my truck in a ditch a couple of times, and that's when I just made a different plan. I was like, you know what? I can't get to where I want to get to because the roads are impassable, and they're going to be for the next couple of days until they dry out. So I'm just going to drive all blacktop, and I'm just going to drive to all the pieces that I can hunt that's public, and I'm just going to walk every field, just walk the edges of every field, and just see if I can cut something because maybe I'll cut something somewhere where I didn't anticipate, right?
Yep.
And just using what I have. And so, I mean, sometimes when you get thrown that curveball, it's a blessing. Because truthfully, it's like I would have never found that big deer that I was on. I would have never found if it weren't for the rain. Because I would have never, like, those were places I'd never hunted before. I'd always had them marked, just never made them to it because I always had a spot where I knew kind of had dialed a little bit. Right. But the problem was this year is like that place got a lot of pressure. And so, it wasn't really worth me hunting. So I was having to make another plan. So, the bad weather actually forced me to create another plan. And then I actually needed a plan B. And that was the plan B. Right. And that's where the big deer ended up being, so, you just work with what you have, especially if you have days to hunt, then use it for something. You don't always have to be in the tree hunting or on the hunt, quote unquote. Right. It's like sometimes it's just learning something, just getting a piece of the puzzle, just something to point you in the right direction to where you feel like you're in the game a little bit. Right. Because especially on like the travel trips and stuff, like in those areas, like I don't use cameras or anything on those trips. It's like I'm just going out and I've got a certain amount of time and I'm going to figure it out, and so you're just trying to get a start, and people too often just try to swing for the fence. It's like, I'm going to go and find this hub with this big rub and this, that, the other. It's like, I mean, maybe, I'm just not that lucky. It's like, it's me a little bit more work. And maybe I'm just not smart enough. I don't know. But a lot of times I start small and it's like, can I cut a track? Can I cut a rub line? Can I just find a well-used trail that clearly deer want to use and just follow that until I see something interesting. Right. And then go from there. It's like, I think people get so confused with things. The more I talk to like really good deer hunters and stuff like that, or just good people at anything, it's like, they're just really, really good at the fundamentals and they don't make it complicated. It's like, when you see guys like Andy May and stuff like that, man, like Andy's a killer dude, but like Andy he's really, really good at the fundamentals. Like he's really good at he has great instincts that's been built over time. He plays the wind really well. He's really good at his access. He's really good at being quiet. He's really, what I mean? Like all the basic stuff, or you look at jujitsu, it's like Hodger Gracie was like a 5-time world champ and he won 5 world championships by using a white belt technique, a cross collar choke, right? So something you learn like the first month you do jujitsu. And he was a 5 world champ and one of the best ever, right? Fundamentals. He was really, really good at the fundamentals, And I think a lot of people lose sight of that, especially, they think they got it like, this guy's killing all these, he's got to be doing something fancy. It's like, no, he's probably just doing the basics really, really well.
Yep, dude, for sure. Yeah. And like, that was one of the things you're talking with Jacob, we talked a lot about, just keeping tabs on deer. One of the things he said to me that to this day echoes in my head is just that, you know, basically cutting a buck's track is as good as getting his trail cam picture, except it's more precise and you don't have to go and pull a card to check it. Like you can see that, you can get a good idea of how old a track is based on, you know, all the, you know, what the soil looks like, all that other stuff. But dude, I feel like if people were to commit to just looking for tracks, I bet they would have more success and they would find themselves in the game significantly more than worrying about how many cameras they've got and, you know, all that other stuff that gets in the way and takes us out of the woods, right? And obviously there's a balance to be struck there in, you know, not over pressuring a spot and over scouting an area and then pushing all the deer out of it. But like, man, if you're not able to find just the basics, like you said, like, is this trail beaten down, you know, to a rut? That's probably a good sign, right? Or is it, oh, there's some
a good sign that deer like to be here. Now, is there one that I want to kill in this area? I don't know. We got to qualify it further, right? It's like, that's when you get to like, okay, can I cut a track? Is there a rub in here that would suggest that an animal is of a certain size or stature? Maybe rubs are deceiving. You know, you and I were talking about the rub of the big deer that I was chasing. I had him making rubs on camera. And like you would have think a Forky made it, but he had one defining mark that would suggest that it was his, right? And that was how I kind of followed him around. You know, so you have to just be discerning of what you're looking at. You got to take into consideration, like, where am I at? What's the deer density in this area, right? So what should the sign look like, right? Because it's not always big sign for big deer, like, you know, necessarily. Sometimes big deer leave no sign, especially if they don't have any competition, right? It's like there's no need for them to leave any sign. You know, if I were to hunt this area, how would I access it? Is there anybody else in the general area hunting it? What's my prevailing wind typically for this area, you know, during the time of year that I'm going to hunt it? Is there an area that I have to concern myself with thermals? How are the thermals going to play here? Is there elevation I'm dealing with or whatever the case is? Like, you just go through the Rolodex of the basics and just answer those questions. You're going to be wrong sometimes on them. That's okay. Like, you adapt when you get wrong information. Like, wrong information, being wrong is just as good as being right, and sometimes even better.
Right.
You know, like I was talking to Jake Bush about that, and that's like a lot of how he scouts is like, just like, I don't want to say he tries to be wrong, but like just mark off all the spots that are wrong. Right. And now you're left with like what should be right. And it's usually a lot more manageable.
Totally. Yeah, dude, absolutely. Sorry, I had a little bit of a lag there.
No worries.
Dude, so no, you mentioned, you know, you're not the kind of guy who, you know, can pull a Ryan Glitsky and, you know, go dawn to dusk for 10 days in a row out of the same spot. But you mentioned there earlier, like, dude, you can hit the road and buckle in and just settle in out of state for a month, dude. Like that, obviously you've got a schedule that permits it and stuff with work and all that. But dude, like, mentally, physically, I mean, just all of the above, everything like that's not easy. Like, I think a lot of guys, it's easy. They could wrap their head around, okay, I've got 7 days that I'm going to go out and that's going to be my vacation. I'm going to make this happen. Dude, how do you pace yourself? And I guess, honestly, just maintain sanity throughout the course of a month, living out of a trailer and chasing deer every day.
Yeah. I would like to say that it's easy, but it's not. You know, it's
as much as I love deer hunting, it sounds like hell a little bit. Like,
yeah, it is a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I think for part of me, I just like I enjoy the suck of it a little bit, you know, because it's like the story of it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to fruition, man, and like there's the sacrifice and the persistence and the, you know, being willing to, you know, be wrong over and over and over again. Like, it's just, when you look back on it, it's like, man, it's just like, it's such a cool experience. Right. And in the moment, like, it's maybe not as fun as you would like it to be at times. But I always kind of tell myself, I have this like saying that, you know, I told Chad, and I came up with this when I was chasing that big deer in PA. Cause I think I told you before we started recording, I think I chased him for like 35 days or something like that. And it was brutal. That was probably the most brutal like hunting session that I had, just based on the terrain, the type of, you know, place that I was hunting, the number of encounters you're not going to have because it's big woods. So you're going days without seeing a deer in general in a lot of instances. But what I told my buddy Chad was, I was like, the only way I can do this is I have to wake up every morning and tell myself a truthful lie. Like I have to tell myself that I'm in it, and I have to have, I'm not an idiot. So it's like, I have to have some evidence daily that I'm making some type of progress. And even if it's not a lot, I got to lie to myself and say it's the day. Like that's the last piece of info I need. Like I got it. I know where he's at. Right. And so that's part of it, is like, I just try to tell myself that, every day I learn something, and, and today may have not been the day. But it's just the day that's going to prepare me for the next day. Right. And so that's kind of how I look at it and go through it. I try not to be big picture. I try not to think of the end. I try not to think of like, and it's hard. I try not to think of the filled tag. I just try to think of like the thing that I'm going to do the next day. And that's the thing that's going to prepare me to do the next thing. And so I never make like the day or an end game or a filled tag or whatever the thing is, the goal, because you're going to constantly hit false summits and it's going to kill you, and you're going to run out of steam. But if every day is a victory because the only goal was to prepare myself for the next day, then every day I win, And so that's kind of how I approach it. And I would like to take credit for that, but that's something I've actually just learned through jiu-jitsu and through grappling and things like that. Because same as deer hunting, wins are fleeting. Like you submit a guy, you win a match, win a gold medal, kill a deer, fill a tag, like whatever it is. But that goes by like that, right? And it's gone.
Yep.
So if that's the thing that you're looking for to sustain you on a trip, where you're going to be out there for a month eating dehydrated meals, sleeping in a bed that's too small without air conditioning, whenever you get like that hot streak in November that comes out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
And you're showering every 3 days, and the shower's ice freaking cold, and you're shitting in the woods every day, like you've not seen a toilet in 30 days. You know what I mean? Like if that's the thing that you're doing it for, man, good luck, because it probably isn't going to work out for you, but if you're doing it because you love the process of it, and you like the small wins in between, and you recognize and appreciate the value of or being grateful to, just for the fact that you're able to do those things. Like you don't have to.
Totally.
Man, I get to. Like I get to get up today and go deer hunt. I get to get up today and go train jiu-jitsu. I get to get up today and have someone push my face in the mat. Right. And so I try to think of it that way, where, man, there's a lot of people who would love to have my problems. Right. Who am I to complain about them? Right. My worst day is someone's dream life. Right. And so that's just kind of the way I try to think about it. Right. And so whenever I'm having a rough day, or not to say that I don't get mad, and I don't want anyone to think that like, man, this guy's got a steel trap mind. That's not true. Right. It's like I have days just like everybody else, man. But what I've come up with is just like, what I have is experiences of doing like really, really tough things consistently in my day-to-day life, with purpose, to build the resilience that I need to do the things that I like to do whenever things get hard, that I don't waver, right? That I know that it's just a hard thing and it's going to prepare me for the next thing, right? And so the moments are never too big or too small. You just kind of have a perspective when you're out there doing it, or if you're training or whatever you're doing. And then you just enjoy the ride, right? Sometimes you control it, sometimes you don't, right? And so when you can, you do. When you don't, you make the best of it, and that's, there's not like a magic part of it. It's just, I think learning to sit in discomfort and sit in quiet is good. I don't think we do enough of it. How often, like when we're sitting and we're uncomfortable, I mean, people don't go to the bathroom anymore without grabbing this, and looking, right.
Yep.
It's like we can't be uncomfortable for like a second. Right? Like we optimize for comfort all the time, but great things or things that you value rarely happen in comfort. Right? So why would you want it comfortable to begin with?
Yep.
Right. Or why would
Exactly.
you seek the comfort to start with? Right. So that's just kind of like, I go into it knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable and go in eyed wise open, and let it rip, and
Yep.
then when I'm tired, I sleep, man. You know what I mean? Like if there's a day where I'm just like, dude, I'm beat up, I sleep in, I get a couple extra hours of sleep, that way I'm mentally sharp. Cause I feel like being mentally sharp and sleep is actually a weapon on those trips. Where I think a lot of guys where they kill themselves or where they mess it up is like, I'm a grinder, man. I'm going to do 14 days straight. It's like, dude, I got like 5 days straight. I mean, then I got to have a morning, and I
Yep.
know that. And so I just plan for it. You know what I mean? Now, sometimes it's like I might be on something or feeling real good where I'm like, all right, I'm going to go another day. I'm getting up tomorrow because I feel like I'm right there. Right. But that's whenever you have those truthful lies that push you through and keeps you sharp. Right. But if you're grinding, not getting anywhere, it's probably not because you're not seeing what you need to see. It's probably because you don't have the clarity you need to actually see what's in front of you. And so you're
Right.
probably better off sleeping in, getting a couple extra hours, getting some breakfast, having some coffee, and being mentally sharp, and then go. And now you're eyes wide open, right? And I can now see clearly the things that are in front of me, right? And I think that's like a disservice that a lot of guys do to themselves, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no I don't know. There's no badge of honor for like killing yourself and screwing things up, right? Like take the nap, dude. It's cool. It's
Yep.
okay.
Definitely, dude. Dude, I love that you said that, man, because I mean, so many things you said there were fantastic. Like the one that always sticks out to me is like, whenever you get on a stretch of, chasing a deer or hunting an area for like multiple days in a row, it's like, I mean, for some people, like if you string together 15 days total in a hunt, right? I mean, that's more than a lot of people do in several years.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
most hunters are hunting opening weekends or just their Saturdays or whatever. Like to be able to hunt that often and to be able to string days together, like is a massive advantage. And like it is
Mhm.
something that, as much of a blessing as it is, after a while, to your point, like it does kind of suck. And like, oftentimes you do just need an extra 2 hours of sleep, or you do need to, cut yourself some slack and, hop in the truck and go grab a, you know, Red Bull or a gas station burrito or something, and just whatever's going to help you reset and come back in with fresh eyes and a fresh mind and just give you that little bit of a reset to break things apart and, help you go back in with a full head of steam. And, like you said too, you just like, if it was easy, it wouldn't really be that fun. And
That's it.
a big part of it is like you just have to be okay with things kind of just sucking, because for the most part they're not going to kill you. Very few things
Mhm.
really will, but if you can string those together and just, I like that truthful lies. that's
Yeah.
that's wicked, dude. That's perfect, because
Yeah.
you're right, whatever gets you out of bed, whatever's going to get you in there the next day, and not worrying about what the day's result is, but just with the intent of tomorrow will be better because of what I'm doing today, dude. I love that perspective. That's
Yeah.
fantastic, dude. On
And it's
that
like,
note, man, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was going to say, like, that's the way I've always kind of thought, but it was like, it was actually said to me in a way that made a lot, like, cause I always kind of thought that, like, in hunting, right? Where it was
Hmm.
whatever I do today is going to help me tomorrow. Right. So no matter how bad today is, like, the benefit is in front of me. Right.
Yep.
But I had a guy, um, that I talked to after the last tournament that I did. Um, you'll love this being a Penn State fan. It was I actually ran into Carter Starachi at
Oh,
the tournament.
sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was there like his striking coach, because his striking coach was competing in a tournament.
Hmm.
And I won 2 divisions that day. Had a really good day, and
Nice.
I noticed him, and I said hi to him, and he came over to talk to me, like shook my hand, and I just said, "Hey, it was a pleasure watching your career, man. Like, thoroughly enjoyed it. Awesome." Now I've basically watched him since he was in high school. I watched
Hmm.
him all the way back then. And then he actually asked me a bunch of questions about my tournament, how I did, like what did I think translated well for me from wrestling to jiu-jitsu. Like super curious dude. Like, I mean, he doesn't know me from Adam. It could have just blew me off, but like he was picking my brain. That's what I mean, this like from interviewing deer hunters, right? Like the best guys, like they ask everybody questions, right? They
Yep.
don't care if you've been hunting for a year. You might be doing something so unique because you don't know any better. And it might be the thing that I need to kill this deer, right?
Hmm.
That's how the great ones think, right? And so he and I started, after that, we started talking about like his mental preparation because he's done it at the highest levels, right? Um, and specifically, we got on the topic of like competition anxiety, right? Because I was like, I'm competing at local tournaments. I'm 48 years old. I'm not professional. I love doing this. I was like, but I get so nervous before I compete, right? It's like almost debilitating, right? And I do well, but I'm never happy with my performance, right? And I was like, how do you do that? Like you're doing it, like winning 5 national titles. Only guy's ever done it, right? I'm like, how do you manage that stress? And he said, number one, that the words you say to yourself out loud matter and they will come true. That's the first thing. He never says anything to himself that's not positive or reinforcing the goals that he has, right? The second one was, and this really isn't applicable to deer hunting, but he said, elite level competitors, the difference is never physical, it's always mental. Because they're both elite, they're both well trained, they're both, they're equal, all things considered, right? For the most part. The difference is the person who has the better mental preparation is going to win the match. And he said the third one is to get over the anxiety part of things of like competition being like too big. And this is where I go to like, don't make the tag the goal, right? He said, I manage competition anxiety by not focusing on the win or the outcome of the tournament or the win of a match. He's like, it's only ever the next thing that I'm doing that prepares me for whatever the next thing is after that. And his example was, he's like, if I lost that national title to win 5 national titles, was I not going to go to worlds and to world trials the next month and try to make a world team? He's like, no. He's like, so it literally had no bearing on my life, like what was going to happen after. It was going to change nothing. He's like, so don't give it any more value than that. It's just another day to get better, to be better for the next thing. And that's it. And so I was already thinking that way with hunting, but I never thought that way with like training in jujitsu. And when he said that to me, I'm like, man. And that's like, I see so many through lines between like my training and hunting the longer I do both, where I'm like, they're the same thing. Right. Because that was my attitude whenever I go on these long trips, is like every day is just the next day that I'm going to do that'll prepare me for the next one after that. Right. And so I got to give him credit because he dropped that knowledge on me, and I was like, and it's made a big difference, man. It's like, it's just, you look at outcomes differently, because you can take that and apply it to anything, to your job, to your family, how you raise your children, how you interact to be the best version of like the husband or the wife that you want to be for your significant other. Like, it's all tied together. And just, if you look at everything that you do as like the thing that gives me an opportunity to be better for the next time, then you're never really truly losing. Right. And so then there should never be any apprehension about executing.
Right. Definitely, dude. I absolutely love that, man. And that's what a cool guy to get that quote from too. I mean, that's on top of it, that makes it even better, dude. That's awesome. I love that, dude. And you're right, dude. There's so many parallels between, whatever pursuit it is, whether you're starting a business, whether you're in the woods, whether you're, competing in jujitsu, wrestling, or, whatever it may be. Ask like your fatherhood, like you said there, like whatever you can do, and just maintaining that framework. Because I feel like, as you start to leave, with an organized anything, right? Especially if you go off and do something on your own. If you're hunting on your own for the first time, you're pursuing things, trying to figure it out by yourself, or maybe you leave your job and you're going to start your own business or something like that. Like there's very little structure, and you figure that out really quickly, and it can definitely throw you for a loop. But having those little things of just like, okay, what is one thing that's going to set me up for success tomorrow that I can do right now? And it doesn't have to be anything big, but eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? I love it.
That's it.
That's awesome, dude. Well, dude, on that note, I've kept you here for a little over an hour, so I want to be respectful of your evening here. But, dude, on the note of preparation for the season, what are you doing right now to get ready for your trip to Iowa and also chasing some big deer over in PA?
Absolutely nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
I kind of would have loved that answer, actually.
Right. It's not far from it, to be honest. We've had a busy summer. You and I were talking before we started recording. Like, I just shipped my daughter off. She's a freshman in college this year. So the summer's been full of doing things with her, for her, getting her prepared to go to school and, start to live her adult life. So that's been a lot of the focus of the summer. So I've spent limited time in the woods. I'm not a big summer woods guy just in general. I usually try to get all my stuff done sometime in the spring-ish. And then just because family schedule usually dictates during the summer, I'm just busy. Be a little different now, like going forward, because I won't have the same obligations. But for me, for PA, I have a bead on a really good deer. It's in an area that I've hunted in the past. I had a really big deer in there a couple years ago that I bumped and screwed up, which was terrible. But there's a really big one in there now. He's like, I'll just say he's Midwest big. Like, so he would get killed in just about any state by most people. We'll put it that way.
Sure.
I had him on a camera, but I just needed one picture of him to know that he was there, so he's around. He hasn't been back for like a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to glass an area. I glassed him once too, so I know he's in the general area. It's a fickle area to hunt. The access is really kind of crappy. So one thing I did do is I did walk. So in the interest of like figuring out where he's not, I walked in from a different access route, which was terrible. It was like walking through a sea of greenbrier for forever, it seemed like. And basically figured out he's not in that area, right? Which is perfect, which is fine. But now it's like I'm going to use that as access to get into the area where I think he's spending time, and so that's kind of really my plan in PA. I got to make it to the mountain. This is like some stuff that's, not far from where I live. And then I'm going to make it back to the mountain. Probably I might go back next weekend to just kind of pull cameras and take inventory. If there's a mega giant there, I might hunt there some, but for right now, I think I'm going to focus on at home because I am going to go to Iowa for a long stretch. For Iowa, I was out there in March for a week and did some scouting. I kind of have some areas in the same general area where I killed a deer the last time I was out there. Only some things have changed that for the better. And I ran into just some like stupid mega giant sign, and it's all sets up the way it should, where after I looked at it and then I kind of looked back at the map and like all the areas I scouted and I kind of looking at the topo and kind of like how the topo was connecting certain things, it kind of dawned on me. I was like, duh. I was like, that's why all that sign is there. Like it should be there,
Yeah.
So I feel real good about that. My plan is to get out there right now. I think I'm going to be there like the 24th of October. I think I'm going to get there. And then I'll hunt basically until like roughly Thanksgiving if I need to. And then if I don't kill anything by then I might make it out for late season too. Like just depends, right? Because that Iowa tag you only get for me like once every 4 to 5 years. So try to take advantage of it. But I feel real good about everything that I'm kind of seeing. If I get a cold front like middle of October, I might make the move like middle of October and just extend my stay by a week or two or whatever. If like if that cold front snaps through and it's like all of a sudden you get that front in October where it's like, the high is like 45 for like 3 days or something like that. It's like, I'm probably not going to miss that. Probably going to make my way out that direction. But I'm not looking to kill a mega giant, man. I'm looking to have a good time. Going to be toting the longbow, so which is risky business. So other than that, man, it's like I'm basically just shooting every day. I was shooting right before we jumped on, so I'm now shooting broadheads now. Like this is the time of year where I switch to broadheads with the longbow and make sure everything's dialed in and feeling good. I felt good. The longbow is so fickle, man. It's like there's some days I go out there and I'm like, I can't hunt with this thing. I'm like, you kidding me? You know what I mean? It's like, and I go out and I shoot today. It's like, and I couldn't miss. It's just like, I don't know. It's like a dirty lover or something. I don't know.
Is it as fickle as people say? Like I've heard it's like you take 3 days off and it's like you've never touched the thing before. Like
it's funny, dude. Like I feel like if I take a day, so I hadn't shot in a couple of days because we were traveling to drop my daughter off. And so that's why I was like, man, I need to shoot some arrows today. I actually shoot better when I take a couple of days off. I don't know why. It's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. Like I'm better at the sport or at the game, if you will, whenever I have a couple of days off in a row, right? My mind is just sharper and there's value in that. Just like the way your brain works and things like that of actually taking that time off. Going back to what we were saying, like there's long trips, why you take those mornings off, man. Like your brain, just like when you lift or anything, like in your muscles need, like you don't grow strength wise. Yes, lifting is part of it because you're tearing your muscles, right? Like you're tearing them apart.
Yeah.
The actual growth and strength comes from like their recovery and their ability to mend. which is why recovery is so important in physical activity. But it's actually the same, if not more important for your brain. So if you're hunting and you're grinding and you can't figure something out and you're like, why can't I figure this out? You probably need like a day off. So your brain has the ability to put all the pieces where it needs to put it. And then you go, oh, there it is. Like my brain had time to recover and actually be able to do the work it needed to do in the background because I just keep overloading it. I actually just did a podcast with a psychologist that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks that we talked about that, like about those kind of components of like how you learn and how your mind needs a rest and it does its best work when it rests, and like how much more productive it is and so forth. Right. So that's not just like some hoo-ha that I'm making up. Like that's like studies support it, like that you work better when you have some mental recovery, Yeah. I just think, we get into this grinder mentality and I think it backfires on a lot of people. But so that's what I'm doing now, man. Just shooting my bow, getting ready to roll. I got a couple things to do to the trailer before we get going, just to make sure she's seaworthy and ready to roll. And then I'll be living in that heap for a month to a month and a half or whatever it is.
Hell yeah. Dude, that's awesome, man. That's an exciting fall you got lined up there, man. I'm excited to see hopefully a handful of deer hit the ground for you, whether it be in Iowa or PA or wherever it may be. I tell you what, if you tag out in Iowa in late October, you're going to have to swing on up to Wisconsin. It's an over-the-counter tag. It's cheap. I will share pins, and there's plenty of ground that I think you might be able to come home extra heavy if you want to spend an extra couple of days there, dude.
I would love to, man. Wisconsin's on my list. I just haven't made it there. Haven't made it there yet. I got a couple dates on my list that I got to make it to, and you guys are one of them.
Dude, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's pretty dang cool. It's kind of like PA. Like you've got all these different sub terrains within the state that you can pretty much kind of choose your adventure and run it from there because they're all within a couple hours of each other. But dude, I appreciate the hell out of your time, man. Dude, this has been fantastic. I want to make sure you can get everything loaded up and spend a little time with the wife before you hit the road this week. But dude, seriously, I appreciate everything you put out into the hunting community and all the knowledge that you drop through your podcast and everything, dude. It's been a frequent listen of mine for several years here now. So I'm glad we finally got a chance to talk. On that note, where can folks go if they want to check out all the awesome content that you're putting out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm everywhere that you would find a podcast, all the different platforms, YouTube. I drop everything there every Thursday. The episodes come out. I've been doing a Trail Camera University series. I did one series last year, did another series this year. So those are coming out on, I think, Tuesdays, if I'm not mistaken. The regular podcast comes out on Wednesdays. Truthfromthestand.com if you want to check out the website, but it's just got mainly just the podcast stuff there. And just a teaser, I might have another little YouTube series coming out here in the not so distant future that I'm playing around with. I've got a couple things. I'm actually going to go edit some stuff right now, actually, after we're done with this. So that'll be coming here in the next, probably month or so.
I dig it. Dude, that's exciting, man. I'll keep a lookout for it. But until then, man, good luck. If I don't talk to you before you head west or before you get in the woods, and stay in touch, dude. I look forward to seeing what happens, what plans out for you this fall, man.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on, and good luck this fall. And hopefully I'll be swinging up to Wisconsin to pay you a visit.
Yeah, fingers crossed, dude. We'll talk soon. Thanks, buddy.